All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was great to finally meet you because this is how we meet each other nowadays over Zoom. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization and what you're passionate about?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Himanshu Bharadwaj. I work for a fintech firm. I run the design function, and I've been a designer for a long time. But my journey started from India. I grew up in India, and from painting to cartoons to graphic design, then to advertising, and now to product design. But I look at brand marketing and the product design function. And I've worked in several agencies, several startups, consulted with several startups. I've been an entrepreneur myself, tried a couple of companies of my own, and there I am.
Very good. So did you start off as yeah, did you start off as you said you did painting? So did you start off as a visual artist, like a painter, a graphic
Yes,
designer?
yes. So yeah, growing up, I would say, in my fourth grade or something, I started my paint journey in painting, and I wasn't sure if I was a good painter, but my school used to take me to some award, painting competitions, and I used to win awards. So that was a motivation for me to pursue. And um, when I was in, I would say, 12th grade, I won a national award for painting.
Wow,
So that
fantastic. That's great. What did
so I
I'm curious, what did you paint?
I painted something on French Revolution,
Oh, wow.
and
Nice
and
topic.
it and it won me a scholarship to go to France
Hmm.
and visit France. So when I went to France, it just changed my whole perspective about how I saw world, and it just opened me to a whole new world and the possibilities that I can have. And despite being a science student, you know, I, I, s- I kind of made up my mind that I would do painting as my career. So I enrolled in an art school, and I was doing painting. I was doing pretty well. I was exhibiting my work and competing with the professionals, despite being a student at that time.
Wow,
And
fantastic.
I was enjoying my journey. And every weekend I used to have a cartoon in a national newspaper.
No
So
way, you were actually a cartoonist.
yes, yes, I would do
Very
both.
cool.
So there is this artistic flair of inside me, and also a creative uh, flair that would comment on the current events, or push the boundaries of imagination into something else, accentuate and highlight certain traits in people more than who they are. So all that was interesting to me. And then people said, why don't you do logos? I think logos would be a good thing to do, and you can make a lot of money doing logos. So I was just enjoying my
So
journey,
you
and
can
then
make
I
more
said,
money doing logos than you can doing just paintings. Is that right? Is that why they got you
yeah.
in?
Yeah, so I thought, okay, let me try that. And I was just open to trying any new thing that was creative, clay modeling, things with clay, things with different objects, writing stories, writing poetry, anything that was just catching my fancy at that time. I would do it. So I enrolled in a design school, National Institute of Design in Ahmedabad in India. It was a 5-year program, and once I went there, I was with really, really creative people around me. And, it was not just art. I was exposed to product design, textile design, furniture design, ceramic design, and, TV, film, and radio. All those things just came together for me, and I could expand my horizons a little more.
Wow, that's fantastic. So did the program do that, or was it just all there and you could experience it if you wanted to?
So the first year was a common program for everybody as a foundation program, and then you start to specialize into communication design, and then from communication to, say, graphics to advertising, and that was like the progression for me. But having being in the same campus with everybody else, and it was a small group of people. Like my class had only 30 students, and those 30 students were divided into different disciplines. So there were like two people in furniture, one person in textile, or it was a very close group of people. And the whole school was created based on the philosophy of Charles Eames and Ray Eames. So Charles Eames had come to India way back many decades ago, after India won the independence, and he created this whole program where there were no books, there are no exams, no marking system.
That's my kind of school. That's my do they does anybody can anybody sign up for that? Because I want to sign up for that. That sounds great.
So I had a lot of fun there, and I developed interest in spirituality. In parallel, during that time, I would go up during my summer vacations to Himalayas, spend some time there, and explore the new dimension of my being. I was it was it was a period that I was exploring who I am in different areas. So after I finished the design education, I joined an advertising agency. It was DDB Advertising in India. And it was one of the best advertising agencies, just like in New York, you have DDB in New York, and it's a global agency. So I was working on global brands, making ads. So I launched KFC in India during that time.
Oh, no
And
way. Are they as nuts about KFC in India as they are in Japan? I know they're nuts about KFC in Japan, but I'm not sure what it's is it crazy in India too that they love KFC?
yeah, during that time there was a craze because it was something new, and this was late 90s, when after India had opened up its economy, and a lot of multinational companies were coming in. So there was a new, it was a big opportunity for us working on Indian brands to also work on a lot of international brands. And what I learned is if I want to do more creative work, I have to go to where the creative work is done. So that was my motivation to come to New York, and I enrolled myself at Syracuse University in the advertising design program. And this was the time when internet was new for me, and I was learning the traditional advertising, but also taking courses in the digital, or in the interactive, as they said during that time, media. And I think it just caught my fancy, and I was doing animation, putting it up on the web. I was enjoying coding. I would create mathematical equations in Flash and put on the website. I would make insects crawl on web pages, different kinds of motions of insects. So all my cartooning skills, creative skills, were coming in the form of code.
So it's
And
interesting you should say that because it's kind of like you had the graphic side, so you had the creative side, and then sort of like the internet came along and gave you a technical outlet. So it's like the internet is the web is like the perfect combination of the two, right? You got the technical
yes,
side of things and you got the graphical side of things, right?
that's correct. Yeah, yeah. So I think somehow my work attracted a few people, and one company called Modem Media, which was the pioneering agency of that time, and basically gave me a job. They had created world's first banner ad during that time,
Oh wow,
and
so it's their fault that we've had so it's their fault that we have advertising on the internet, right? No, it's not.
yes, but I got to work with some pioneers of internet marketing at that time, and I was making websites for IBM.com, GeneralMotors.com,
Wow,
Delta
very cool.
Airlines.com.
Very cool.
Yeah. So, I probably worked on probably the second version of IBM.com, and the early versions of GeneralMotors.com. So those were the good days when everybody wanted a website, and
Yeah,
all the
yeah.
large companies were coming, and they had $1 million budgets for a website.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I remember it too because I worked for a company called Online Focus and we had the FedEx website and we'd be charging $1 million per page. It was just HTML and images, but it's amazing what
Yes.
we could get away with back then. It was nuts.
So I was part of certain innovations during that time. So we created chat-enabled banner ads or multiplayer gaming ads, won a lot of awards, and the entrepreneurial bug started to get to me, and I created a startup with a friend of mine, and all we were doing was making website and hosting them. So it was
What
good
what kind
money because
what kind of businesses? Were they larger businesses or medium-sized businesses
Uh,
or?
small to medium size, because
Hmm.
everybody needed a website,
Oh yeah.
and and GoDaddy and all these companies were not that popular. So we would create websites, create applications, the small scale applications for those websites, and host them. And it was recurring revenue for us when you host them.
Hmm.
So, I was, and, I got to create offices globally at that time. So we opened an office in India and in the US. And, I started working in the remote model and the international model that now everybody's working on.
So
But I
you
experienced,
work from anywhere. You did that what back in the early 2000s? Is that right?
yes, yeah,
Oh, excellent.
mid 2000 to the end, to 2011 or yeah, 10, something like that.
Yeah. But the tools
And
weren't as good as they are today, but I'm sure it would have been.
that
It
is
was a little
true.
bit
Yeah,
more of a challenge.
it was a lot of phone calls. There was no video conference. We had Skype, but the internet connections were not that good.
Yep. Yep. So now is the perfect time to have a completely remote team, but then
Yes,
it was a challenge.
that's correct. So,
Hmm.
you had to talk a lot more than what you talk now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you would explain it and have people explain it back so that they have understood, because you cannot see the faces of people. You
Yeah.
don't even know whether the voice quality is good enough for them to really understand. And you're speaking to people in different cultures and countries. Um, so that was a challenge, but we made it.
Hmm.
And so then when the economy burst, I came back to New York and started consulting with companies and advertising agencies here. And, I consulted with a fintech startup building a micro loan financing application.
Ooh,
And
very
that was one
cool.
of the,
Is that Kiva or is this some other company?
it used to be called Lendo.
Lendo. That sounds really familiar. What happened to them? Are they still around or did they get bought?
Yeah, they got bought, and now they are like in, I think, 20 countries or something, but it was made for the developing nations around the world. So,
Mm,
people who don't have access to internet, or people don't who have access to computers, but they might have access to a cell phone, and they can access micro loans for small tasks. So, for example, there's a small owner of a shop, and he sells groceries, and he needs to buy some grocery. For that, he needs, say, $100. So he can just go to the application, get a loan, and buy it. But the whole concept of approval was social currency.
oh,
So
fantastic.
basically, so basically, if you know a bunch of people and they can vouch for you, you are more likely to get a loan.
Nice.
So, so people would give access to their social media profiles to us, and we'll run some algorithms and figure out how likely they can repay back the loan, how socially connected they are, and there are no red flags and all that.
Yeah,
And the whole system would calculate and approve them the loan. And
that's
the
very
whole
cool. And so what happened if I vouched for somebody and they reneged? Would I have to pay too, or
no
was it
no
more like a social
so
credit?
So, the friends would not really vouch, but as long as they were close friends and we could see there has been like communication between them, the timeline is populated, there are a lot of
Okay.
comments on the timeline, which means they're really active and people are, praising them, or, commenting, and, there is a more cordial communication between people. So we could do all that, guesstimate using our algorithms. And
Right. So it was like a higher level of trust because you had a number of people saying, "Oh, this person is good for it." So
yes. Yeah. and
Excellent.
they
So
would
was that
they
all
would give
manual or
access.
was it all automated? Was there some manual intervention there too, or was it all automated? Like,
All are automated, all
oh, very
automated.
cool. So you wrote those
Yeah.
algorithms?
No, no. I had some smart friends who did that. I
Nice.
think the chief technology officer was a PhD from MIT, and he worked under, I think it's called, he's Richard Kendall, Dr. Kendall from Columbia University,
Oh, nice.
who won the Nobel Prize in neuroscience.
Wow, very cool.
So,
Very cool. Well, that's
so
good.
I
I
had
mean,
those.
I love stories like that. So you said Lendo's still around, or is it under a different name
They
now,
were
or?
bought by another company. They were bought by another company, and now they're based in, I think, Singapore or
Hmm.
some country like that
But they're
in
still
the Asia.
operational and they're still giving loans and everything.
Yes, yes,
Excellent,
yes.
excellent. I love it. So what happened after that? I mean, did you leave Lendo, or did
Yeah,
what happened?
so I think what I did was published in the Wired magazine
Oh,
as
nice.
it was I think the first loan application on Facebook back then.
Very
So,
cool. Wow, you are really
so
are a
people
trailblazer. That's great.
so people could apply for loans on Facebook, and I think they won some recognition at the World Economic Forum as
Wow.
some most innovative company or top innovative companies in the world. So I think
Fantastic.
that was a good project that I did as a consultant, and I worked at several healthcare startups, fintech startups, insurtech. I launched a few products from ground up, 0 to 1 innovation. Really
Nice.
fascinated me. And then I started a digital agency to do user experience consultancy.
Hmm.
So we would tie up with technology firms and then uh, help them uh, do their product design work.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. So is that how and is that where you are today?
No, I then
Okay.
I found I met the founder of my current company,
Hmm.
and he was thinking of starting something new in the area of cash flow management.
Mm.
And this concept really fascinated me. I felt that this is an area I've never worked. I've worked in capital markets, I worked in banks, but the accounting area was something that was uncharted territory for me.
Interesting.
And I wanted to learn it, also to learn for myself, to so that I can manage my own finances and do my own accounting.
Yeah, it's right. You use the tricks. You use the tricks, right? But it's such a really interesting journey you had, because I mean, you'd think that when you were starting from a really creative place, and then end up getting into fintech and then accounting and these more staid industries. Like, did you have any trouble like integrating into those more traditional industries?
I think it depends on who you work with. At the end of the day, if you work with people who understand creativity, who understand design, the job becomes easier. Otherwise, you're doing just a 9 to 5 job, which
Hmm.
is kind of boring. And I try to talk to the founders. I try to talk to who I would work with. What is the design maturity level? What is their philosophy on product design? And to me, design is not just product design or UX. I see design as a holistic application of creativity. So, the branding, marketing, and product design, they all merged, they all intersect together at different touch points in the customer journey.
Hmm.
So having worked in branding agencies, advertising agencies, and a lot of fintechs building products and other companies building products, I see myself as more of a integrated kind of designer, and this is what I do even in my current job. Understand, taking care of the brand and how brand reflects on the product, and then how brand and product can influence the marketing that we do,
Hmm. So
and vice versa.
would you say that your approach is fairly common, or is this is pretty unique based on who else is in your market?
Probably, because I am an old timer, having worked in a lot of these agencies, I kind of see everything
Yeah.
as a broad spectrum. But these days, when I look at portfolios of designers, even at a senior level, they are specialists in either UX, they are specialists in marketing, or they're specialists in branding.
Yeah.
And somebody who can merge all these three things together and come up with ideas that are truly pushing the envelope, is a rare thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So how many startups would you say were you a part of? I
I've
mean,
lost
you're
count.
one now, right? Can you tell?
Because when I worked for the digital agency that I co-founded, most of our clients were startups,
Oh yeah.
and startups wanted a prototype made, startups wanted a website made, and they would just keep coming.
And let me guess, they came to you and said, "Hey, we'll give you stock. We have no money, but we'll give you stock." Do you remember in the late 90s? That's exactly what they were doing. I mean, I worked for a web design firm at the time too. I was running their engineering practice, and we'd
Mhm.
get startup after startup after startup coming in, going, "Oh, present us their great idea," and then it was like, "Well, we'd love for you to build us a prototype, but can only pay you in stock."
Yeah,
Did that
that
happen to
happens
you?
all the time.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
happens all the time,
yeah,
and this is a problem with the startup. Every startup faces this cash crunch.
yeah,
They have to maximize, work under the shoestring budget, and design actually comes at a later stage in many startups that I worked for. Early on, they would basically build a prototype more with the engineering and the product managers, and maybe they'll hire a freelance designer to pretty things up, but only when they get series B, series C kind of funding, where they can build a whole team of designers, and they
yeah,
hire head of design, and they build the whole design system, and do a refresh of the design. Then
yeah,
design becomes live in the application, and that
yeah.
I feel is too late in the game.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was about to say is like, haven't things changed completely now? Isn't it really important to have a good design up front?
It really helps because you build things from ground up, and you build, you inject design in the DNA of the company. So everything is now design driven or design influence. So generally, my favorite thing is to start with a brand identity, brand strategy, and try to build that, and that shines the light on the product, how you will build the product.
Mm,
And even when you're building the product, think of the company and the product for a long, that survives for a long term, rather than 1 year or 2 year time span where you're only building the product to say get the next round of funding, or
yeah,
you're building the product for just to get into the market, and then
yeah,
once you get the results or get the feedback from people, then you will do an overhaul. That's
yeah.
how a lot of people think. And I see this as a long term endeavor, and you build companies that would last long, and you actually chart the whole timeline. It's like creating a baby, and you
Hmm.
see the whole timeline of this person, this persona as a company, and how you want to progress, what would be the challenges, what would be the obstacles, and what I do in my own journey, how I map the timeline of things. I also see how the product dies,
Mm,
and
mm,
once you understand how the product might die, you get ideas for marketing. You get ideas for new features that would put new life into the product early
right.
on.
That's
So
interesting because hardly anybody does the long-term thinking. They always do the short-term thinking. They're like, until my next round of funding, until this, until this, until the exit. It's like there's nobody really thinking that long-term vision. And that's really interesting that you would do that. Is there a reason why
I think there is,
why
yeah, there is
you?
there is a quote by Steve Jobs. I think it said something to the effect of, people should build companies long term,
Mhm.
and he gave the example of Hewlett Packard and other startups that built the company for long term, for many generations. And I think those people are the true innovators. You should not build a company just to get from one stage to the next stage, but see it long term. Even if you have to exit, build a strong foundation so that the company can last forever, and whoever inherits the company truly loves you forever.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have a question about this. It's like one of the things I've been thinking about recently is that when you have a startup, there's two main aspects to it. So there's actually building the product itself, but then there's
Mhm.
also sort of telling everybody about the product. It's gotten to the point now where it's almost more important to have an audience for the product before the actual product is out there. I mean, what's your take on that?
So I think product is also now the marketing, right? If you build a good product, that would market itself.
Mm,
So I've been seeing a lot of emphasis on product building versus product marketing,
mm.
because if you build it right, if the experience of the product is good, and if it's especially in the SaaS space or social products, I think people become the advocates for the product. And you don't really have to create a Super Bowl commercial. You don't have to put magazine ad or all that. I think is old style, and you can save all that money and put it into the product and build a really good experience within the product.
Yeah, is that like product-led selling or product-led sales? I think I've heard that this is is that a new term where you
Yeah,
just
product-led growth. Yeah,
yeah,
product-led growth.
product-led growth, that's right, where
Yes, yes, yes.
you put all the focus on getting the product to be sort of sell itself, basically,
Yes,
right?
yes. Yeah, and consumers are looking for good experience now,
Hmm.
and experience design is in focus, which is a good thing for what we do. Previously it was all about functionality, usability, and reliability. Now there is, people are looking for delight in products. People are looking for better experiences more than just getting the work done.
Isn't that Steve
And
Jobs' fault though? I mean, Apple set the bar up here, right? And everybody else is trying to get there. And some people are like, oh, well, that's Apple. We can't do that level of design. But I think you have to. I think it's sort of table stakes now for startups to actually
yeah,
have a really good user experience or really good design. You can't just throw out some MVP, which is, looks crappy and expect people to want to pick it up. I think the design is a key factor now. It's got to be well designed from day one.
yeah, I totally agree with you. And having seen the state of the industry, and contemplating on what can I do that is unique and could offer something for the industry, and especially in the projects that I do, I've come up with this whole philosophy called joyful design, and that elevates the whole conversation from this functional aspect of the design and the usable aspect of design to something that is more visceral, something that is more elevates the mood, the mind, even at the soul level. So how
Mm.
can you raise the whole consciousness of the user all the way to the soul? How can you go really, really deep into the heart and minds of your users through the product experience, through your marketing, through your branding? I think that's my work in progress for the last few years, and I've been writing about it, talking about it, and uncovering a lot of new ways in which I can really incorporate it into design.
That sounds really difficult. How do you do that? I mean, is it, first of all, this sounds fantastic. And then is some of the spiritual stuff that you were doing, did that help to inform what you're doing with the Joyful Design?
Yes, it did actually. A lot of it came from there because I saw the modern technology moving people away from humanity. There is a lot of stress. It causes a lot of stress, envy, jealousy, especially the social media, how people are just scrolling all day, one thing after another. It's like a slot machine. They're just looking for one dopamine rush after another.
Yeah,
And on Facebook, when people look at other people being happy, it doesn't make them happy. It just there is this whole comparison with their own self, and it just causes more unhappiness.
exactly.
And Facebook was not created for that, and it was created to bring the world together, more closer.
Hmm.
And but there are unintended consequences, and there are other applications where it's it only causes stress because things are so difficult to operate, or there is a high learning curve.
Hmm.
So people are under pressure to operate. So how do we change that And I also worked in several large companies, and I saw the political environment there, and the and lack of creativity because of so many hierarchies and diktats coming from the top, or work that you do gets diluted. So how do you create a culture within your own company or within your own department, was another area that I wanted to look at, and create a joyful culture within the
Mm.
organization. How do you create joyful teams where everybody can be the best version of themselves? um, and it becomes more difficult when you're working remotely now,
Oh yeah.
because there is not enough physical face time together. So but the world is getting further and further away, as with remote teams now. It's that distance continuously increases. If you I was at a airport the other day, and I was walking by, and I saw everybody just looking at their phones. So there are so many people sitting together, but they're not looking at each other. They're
Yeah.
only looking at
They
their
don't
phone.
talk to each other. They don't look at each other. There's no
Yes.
interaction. It's terrible.
So, so we are moving away from people,
Mm.
and the whole concept of spirituality is to expand your own boundaries of yourself to so that other people can come in.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that is the acceptance, the whole concept of acceptance, generosity, and all that, all the higher values that we've been taught as a child. I think we are missing that. And creativity also comes from those kind of things, and
Mm.
create experiences where there is a concept of happiness that resides in all of us. We are always yearning for happiness, but we seek this happiness outside,
Yeah.
and in objects and devices and experiences, and that experience turns out to be pleasure rather than real happiness. So
Mm.
people have lost the meaning of happiness, what really happiness is, and where they can find happiness. So how can the tools and devices and the applications that we use put users in touch of their inner happiness? And that is
Wow.
the biggest challenge.
That is a huge goal. So, I mean, especially
Yes.
be, I mean, when I think about happiness, I'm like, the first thing I think of is that it's different for everybody. So how do you deal with that uniqueness of what happiness is like for everyone?
So one has to define what makes them happy. And I
Hmm.
think, so there is a small, like, I can give you an exercise now, are you happy right now? And you can
Yes, I'm
say,
very happy
right. So then tell me why you are happy.
because I'm talking to a very interesting person.
Yes. So, and so now that you're talking to me, it's not just me talking, it's your listening, and
Hmm.
your how it's affecting your own emotions, your own mind, that
Right.
makes you happy. It's your
Yeah.
mind that's making you happy. The external influences can be anything. There are a lot of videos on the internet, there are a lot of books around. Just having these objects don't really make people happy. It's what you absorb, what you process in your mind, that makes you happy.
Yeah.
So when you go really deep into the cause of happiness, why happiness happens or why unhappiness happens, both of them actually happen within us,
Mm.
because the senses are only collecting data, and all that data goes inside, and how you process that data really makes you happy or unhappy.
Mm.
So to be happy, you have to learn how to process that data.
So would you
And
be,
that,
go ahead.
yeah,
Sorry, I
go
didn't
ahead.
want to
Go
interrupt you.
ahead, go ahead. Yeah.
No, so you're saying that it's the way I process whatever I'm watching or talking to. Like, say, if I'm talking to you, you know, interesting subjects, we want to expand on the concept of happiness. So this makes me happy because I really would like to know how to do this, how to make more people happy, because I'm always about humans flourishing, humans being happier. But it seems so difficult because everyone has their own definition of it, and I think it's true that you've got to sort of reinterpret it internally, but I mean, a lot of it is through social interaction, right? I mean, having that social
Yes.
interaction, whether it's through the internet or in person, I think that drives a lot of people's happiness. Of course, other people who are more introverted it may not drive their happiness, but everyone has their own way of doing things. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, that is definitely one way of doing it, and it's probably an important way because we are social beings.
Hmm.
We seek social connections with people, and personal touch, authenticity in the connection. But when you look at an application that is just pure code, how do you infuse happiness? And that comes from other kinds of interactive um, interactive designs that we can deploy. And you can deploy things at a surface level, things on the surface that make you happy, micro interactions. The kind of copy that you write can generate a certain joy. Joy is basically packets of happiness. It's like
Mm.
small, it's the molecule of happiness. And happiness is more long lasting. Joy is basically like the atomic structure of happiness. This is how I see it. And then happiness should ultimately lead to bliss,
Mm.
because that's the final destination. The final destination of every human being is blissful life
I love it.
and bliss.
So
So,
can
yeah,
you
go ahead.
define like I love the concept, but this molecule of joy, is it anything like fun or is it different from fun?
Um,
Because fun, if you ask me, is like something that causes you is some enjoyment, right? But it's not particularly, it is a little bit of pleasure, but it's fun, but it's not the same as joy, right?
Yeah, fun is more like a pleasure that you enjoy through senses,
Mm.
but joy is a little more internal,
Mm.
beyond the senses, and happiness is much more long lasting. And so things that you can do at a surface level in applications, then you can do at a much deeper level, where how you can create experiences that are more engaging, put users in a state of flow. And when they are in the state of flow, they forget what's happening around them. They are
Hmm.
fully engrossed. And it's not the social media flow where you are constantly like just doing one thing. It's a flow where it leads to contentment and joy at the end.
Mm.
And that is what flow is, where you don't have any happiness or unhappiness while you're doing the task. It's total 100% focus. So there's more productivity. You're able to do things that you are supposed to do on the job, or if you're working on, say, a financial application, you won't make mistakes because you are totally in the flow. There are no distractions. There are no notifications popping up here and there. There are no error messages. You know, uh, there are no 404 pages. It's a seamless experience.
Mm.
And how, and I use a bit of neuro-aesthetics in my work, how to position the focus on different areas of the brain when a user is doing certain tasks. Sometimes you need to use your reptilian brain, sometimes you need memory function, sometimes you need prefrontal cortex,
Mm.
especially when you use more aesthetics. Just by creating more aesthetics in your design, you can activate your prefrontal cortex. So for
Interesting.
me, aesthetics is very important in any experience. And what kind of aesthetics is also important? An aesthetic that really puts you at ease while you're operating a device or an application. So when you are able to focus your attention on the prefrontal cortex, you become more wise, you become more focused, you can make better decisions. And a lot of applications these days, business applications, are all about making the right decisions,
Hmm. Hmm.
because data is there, processing is there. The human mind is basically supposed to make the best decisions possible.
And so let me go back to joy for a second. So we were talking about molecules of joy. The Can you give me an example of what like a molecule of joy would be, maybe in the current application that you're building?
So, if you come to say, one, the home page, for example, or actually, I have on my website, in the company that I work for, I'm talking about getting paid faster.
Hmm.
Okay, so this is a business problem where you are expecting payment from people, but people pay you late.
Yeah.
And
Common problem, big cash flow
yes,
issue. Yeah.
it's a big cash flow issue, and I have to show this whole concept of, you can get paid faster if you just use our application.
Hmm.
So I could have just written the headline, just get paid faster.
Yeah.
I could have just created a graph and said, okay, if you use this, your thing, you can
Yeah. Or
get
like a
paid
little
faster.
animation of money flowing into your account or whatever, like
Yes,
that
yes.
sort of thing. Yeah.
So I thought, this is what everybody does. Let me do something that brings a little bit of chuckle and makes it more memorable to whoever just watches this web page.
Hmm.
All I did was put an illustration of a tortoise.
Hmm.
Tortoise is known to walk slow, and the tortoise is on a skateboard. So,
Love it.
you just say, get paid faster, and a tortoise on a skateboard. It just means something, and you
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
make it more memorable, and you will associate it with the joy. The other thing about joy is you associate things and you remember things when you deploy multiple senses um, on any design. So if you basically draw upon your past memories, you make things that are tactile so that your skin can feel it. So even if you're watching something on the screen and it's harsh in texture, your skin will feel it.
Really? Wow. Very cool.
Uh, there are some scientific studies about it.
Hmm.
If there is a certain sound that you associate with that drawing or an object, you would relate it to the sound. If there is a smell associated with it, so
Hmm.
the more senses you can use, the better you can make an experience memorable if you're
Hmm.
doing something online. But if you're doing something in the physical space, you can use a more sensory interactions
Hmm.
to make it memorable. This is the reason why, for example, when we get married, we wear a certain kind of dress,
Oh yeah.
and that dress has a tactile feel. We have flowers, it has a smell. We go to a scenic place so that there is some beauty for the eyes. There is a music that plays so that there is something for the ears. So now when you have so much sensory data
Hmm.
accumulated inside your mind, it would make the experience memorable, and you would remember this marriage all your life,
Yes.
and that would keep you happy. So the small rituals, these rituals like marriage weren't designed just because two people were coming together.
Yeah.
You invite friends, so there is more social interaction. This is your social group, and you chat with them, you enjoy with them. All that gets stored in the memory as a
Hmm.
happy. So when you create applications, if you can create the same kind of happy memories, people will come back again and
Yeah.
again.
So where do you see Joyful Design going? You said are you writing a book on it, and are you gonna teach the practice, or are you still in the
I
process of putting it together?
Yeah, I had started the book, but with the startup that I'm working for, I just don't have the time. Uh, but I do speak here once in a while, or write on Medium about it, or on on LinkedIn. Uh, but eventually, yes, I want to do something formal with it and put it together in a book format. Before I retire, I want to give something to the world.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, so would you say now it's time to think like a futurist? It's the year 2032. It's 10 years from now. Would you say that Joyful Design is everywhere?
Um, it's a difficult question because the way the world is moving, I feel there are a lot of challenges, and I can focus on, say, one aspect of, say, technology, and maybe artificial intelligence, for example. Um, it is taking us away from each other, and it is going to create a lot of problems in the future because
Mm,
of that. And I would create its parallel with spirituality,
mm,
as we talk about it. So what I see, artificial intelligence doing is, affecting us at physical level, mental level, and spiritual level. At the, just like the industrial revolution that happened 200 years ago, where, the world was divided, and, people who were successful became the superpowers and they colonized the world. Likewise, with the artificial intelligence, you will have, people who have the know-how and they control it, and people who don't control it.
Yeah.
And the bottom strata of the society would be the worst affected people, because a lot of jobs would be automated and they would not be able to find jobs. So
Hmm.
there would be a lot of unemployment. The whole power structure of the world will also shift, where countries who have the artificial intelligence would be the superpowers.
Mm.
And it would affect the defense. There are a lot of, there are going to be drones and AI soldiers and submarines. It would affect the whole finance, people who control the economy because of that. It would, at a mental level, it would affect the human agency,
Mm.
because now all your decisions are being taken by an artificial intelligence.
Hmm. That's
And
actually
at
an
the end,
interesting. I have a question for you on that, so keep going.
okay. So, and we are going to be driven by what the applications or the media shows us, and the media is driven by algorithms.
Mm.
And the concept of truth will be what the algorithms show you.
Mm.
So what you see on Wikipedia will become the truth.
Yeah.
It's not, and that truth is basically what some people in the world are collaborating and writing.
Yeah.
And it is not a global truth. It is, a truth. And there are, what Twitter shows, what it does not show, what Facebook shows, and what it does not show, what kind of marketing would be done, and that is controlled by certain power centers.
Hmm.
If
Hmm.
you look at, the way, the social media and the other companies are run, they are all free, but people who own these companies are billionaires. So
Oh
there
yeah.
is, so we are the product. There is this whole movie on Netflix or documentary on Netflix on social media and the social dilemma. I think it explains it really well. So those are the, the negative aspects of AI, and it affects the human connection, because my profile is basically what the algorithms create, right?
Hmm.
So the technology knows everything that I do, everything that I think, everything that I like and dislike. So there is a high probability of manipulating me,
Yeah.
because I come to
It's already happening, right? It's already
so I
happening.
come to YouTube, and I see what I like to see, but that can be manipulated.
Yeah.
Uh, but this is not really the true self.
Mm.
Because if you look at what exactly is self, self is not a bunch of numbers. Me as a self is something completely different.
Yeah.
And the whole spiritual side of me says, I am neither the body and nor the mind.
Mm.
Okay. But the technology says, no, you are a data point for
Yes.
us.
Yes.
You are a bunch of data sets. But I see myself as a colony, or I see myself as um, 20 trillion cells,
Mm.
a cluster of 20 trillion cells that have their own life of their own.
Hmm. Hmm.
They live in harmony with each other. They communicate with each other.
Yeah.
They they uh, they send signals. They make me alive.
Hmm.
And these 20 trillion or 50 trillion cells are not just human cells. It is a combination of many other organisms also within me.
Yeah.
So that is the physical side of me. Then there is a mental side of me, which is, what I think, what I feel, and that, so I am enclosed in this mind,
Hmm.
which is which the material of instruments cannot see, but I can feel it, so it exists. And then there is a spiritual side of me, which is beyond the body and mind, which is consciousness.
Mm.
And consciousness is not divisible. The AI self can be divided into multiple pieces, and you
Hmm.
can look at it in multiple pieces. You can look at, what I really like to eat at breakfast, and that is
Yeah.
the lower, right? But the concept of consciousness is completely different. So as we are going to wear the goggles and, different augmented reality instruments, or put a chip in the head, I think the human self will be a little, will be drawn away from the whole concept of consciousness. And as Deepak Chopra talks about the meta humans in his book, each one of us has the capacity to improve,
Mm.
and brain is constantly evolving. So, when you asked about 2035, I see, brain continuously evolving. Where, how, and which side it's evolving, I think it would be dependent on the individual. But there is capability in all of us to evolve as human beings.
Hmm.
And or a brain in particular, there are so many faculties of the brain that are hidden. Even medical science has not been able to find out. So
Yeah.
all that possibility is there within us, if you look at it from a spiritual angle and look into the future.
Mm.
From the AI angle, it would go in some other direction. But there is possibility of allowing the technology and the spirituality to also converge, create experiences that bring us closer to the human self,
Mm.
so that you can understand yourself much better. You don't see yourself as seeking pleasure from the outside world, but you understand that you can also get pleasure from within. And
Hmm.
these experiences will help you recognize who you are. You are not a persona who is based on the geopolitical location or geolocation and age group and taste, but you are also a persona where there are unique traits about you that are beyond the regular materialistic traits.
And who's gonna? So that's so much there. Uh, who's gonna be able to? Do you actually see that happening, or do you see us going in the other direction? Because I'd love to
Yeah,
see that.
in small things, like,
Yeah.
for example, the other day, in my previous job, I was creating a persona of a father. And my team had just created the regular temp persona of a template that everybody uses in a template. you
Hmm.
know what is the age, what is the kind of photograph, and what is the education, what are the TV channels they watch,
Yeah. Yeah.
or what are the websites they go. And that's so dry.
Mm.
And I urge my team to think about ways in which this person interacts as a human being.
Mm.
Does he hug his child before he goes to school?
Yeah.
What does he like to cook for the family?
Mm.
Did he take them to a circus on the weekend? What kind of circus? What animal did he enjoy? Create those kind of stories.
Right.
And once you start creating those stories, it will influence your user journeys,
Mm.
and you'll see things completely differently. You won't see your user journey as, okay, there was an error, there was there was an interaction with an ad, and the user decided not to purchase, so now it goes into a different funnel.
Yeah.
That's not how you see. You just add humanity everywhere.
Yeah.
You can still keep the same process, but start seeing things differently as a human
Yeah.
being.
No,
Because
I
at the
I
end
think
of
you're
the day,
right. What we're doing is
we are
we're
just
looking
human
at the
experience design.
very minimum surface of, oh, this user or this person, and you're not going deep into the actual humanity of the individual you're writing for.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And I also, look at humanity not as just thinking about humans, but thinking about the whole universe.
Mm.
Because spirituality is universal. It's not just based on specific to humans. every animal, everything that exists in this world is a part of us.
Hmm.
In some way, it is, we are entangled with that. There is this whole concept of entanglement, and it is true because and there is a whole concept of human beings, if they die, nobody will care.
Mm.
The world still go on. If the
Yep.
entire humanity is dead, the world will go on. But if, say, for example, insects are dead, human beings will not survive beyond a certain days or
Hmm.
something.
Hmm.
If plants die, human beings will not survive. So our survival depends on everything that exists on the planet, and even beyond the planet. If you don't have sunlight, how will you survive?
Oh
So
yeah.
we are connected to the universe, and that concept of being connected with the universe gives us so much openness, so much confidence, and we don't feel lonely. We feel that everything is ours. And
Hmm.
I think that just expands our own mind, expands our own consciousness. It's a different way of seeing things.
Yeah.
So I hope to talk about it in corporations, in other places, just so that people understand that they can, even with whatever profession they're doing, they can still use these ideas to improve what they're doing and become a better version of themselves.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much. This has been great. What's the best way? If somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
So I have a website, Joyful.Design. Do visit the website. I've written a few things over there, and let me know what you think. Give me your feedback, your thoughts, ideas. And if you want to talk, I am always available, and we can have a cup of tea together.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. This is great. And I'll put all your contact information in the show notes. So if anybody wants to get in touch with you, they can go directly to you. But this has been
Thank you.
fantastic. I love the concept. I love the concept.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
Bye.